Okay, welcome back. I'd like to welcome all members and guests to the September 4th, 2024 special council meetings. Quick reminder that our meetings are web streamed and televised, so if you could please ensure your phones are on silent, that would be greatly appreciated. And a reminder to anyone virtually attending to keep yourself on mute and use your Teams hand raise feature icon. And with that, I will call the September 4th, 2024 special council meeting to order. And I'd like to take a quick opportunity to welcome our new county clerk, Bill. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, even though we're not putting you to work tonight. We look forward to working with you in the future. Roll call, all members of council are present today. We will go along to approval of the agenda. There aren't any changes, so mover and a seconder to approve that. Moved by Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All in favor? And the agenda is approved. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We'll go right along to staff reports, which is item 3.1.1, zoning bylaw for amendment for 42 Mechanic Street West, Waterford, CD 24107. We just heard. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to briefly thank Council for calling the special council meeting, so that helps us meet our statutory legislative timelines that we have for development applications. I know that the planning department, with the streamlined measures they've put in place over the last couple of years, and despite our resource challenges over a year period, we were able to meet the timelines 98% of the time, which is a pretty high scoring rate, and we'd like to keep that up. So we appreciate the ability after the summer break to have the special council meeting. I believe this one we had that public hearing committee earlier this afternoon, and Mr. Sarah is going to provide us with this report. Fabian?
Thank you. Through you, I'll be presenting the following recommendation report. So the subject lands are located at 42 Mechanic Street West and are proposed to be rezoned from urban residential type 1, R1A, to urban residential type 2, with a special provision 14.1064 to facilitate the future planning application for a severance and the development of 2 semi-detached dwellings for a total of 4 units. The property is located at the intersection of Mechanic Street West and Shadow Lake Lane on the southwest corner in Waterford. The lot is approximately 1,400 square meters with about 40 meters of frontage onto Mechanic Street and about 40 meters of frontage onto Shadow Lake Lane as well. And the surrounding neighborhood consists of residential uses. So to implement the zoning bylaw amendment, the following zoning changes are requested. A zone change from urban residential type 1, R1A, to urban residential type 2 with the following special provision. A reduced exterior side yard setback from the required 6 meters to 4.5 meters, ultimately requiring a relief of 1.5 meters for the exterior side yard setback, so that would result in a side yard setback of 4.5 meters. The application was circulated for comments among the county departments and applicable agencies. Comments of interest are outlined from zoning. The administrator outlined that the proposed parking space within the garage of the building is deficient in size, and that the applicant and the agent are aware, and that the design would need to be modified at the later stages of severance when they apply for at the later stages. That way they can change the internal size of the garages. A traffic impact study was also provided as a part of the complete application, and it also noted that the required 2 parking spaces would be provided and sufficient. So for this zoning bylaw amendment, a member of the public also noted concerns with street parking, traffic, snow clearance, written via email. A traffic impact study provided with the application outlines that the 2 spaces for each unit would be provided on the site, and that it has been indicated that the addition of 4 peak hour trips would be associated with the development. It's a very low increase in traffic, and it's anticipated that it would have minimal impact on the existing road network. It's staff's opinion that the proposed application meets the intent of both the Planning Act and the provincial policy statement. It's considered an infill development, and that will result in intensification within the existing urban boundary of Waterford. So in conclusion, the zoning bylaw amendment would result in increased density and as well as provide increased residential dwellings throughout the county. And through the policy analysis, it's identified that the OP encourages residential growth within settlement areas that contribute to the county's 25% intensification policies. In conclusion, it's staff professional opinion that the proposed development meets the intent of the official plan and is consistent with the PPS, and therefore staff recommends approval of the application as described in report 24107. Thank you, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Thanks, Fabian. Are there any questions? Okay, mover and a seconder that application ZNPL 2024-148 for the property municipally known as 42 Mechanic Street West, Waterford, to amend the Norfolk County zoning bylaw 1Z 2014 from urban residential type 1 zone R1A to urban residential type 2 zone R2 with a special provision 14.1064 be approved as shown in attachment A to report CD 24-107, and further that public input has been received for this application and period was received. Mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Duthie, seconded by Councillor Vanden Driesch. Any debate or discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Item 3.1.2, which is 481 and 487 Norfolk Street South and 7 Decoux Road, Simcoe, report CD 24105.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next recommendation report, we have Mr. Wallace here. I believe this was a file that was at Public Hearing Committee in early July, and he will take it over to introduce the report and recommendation. Andrew?
Thank you, Brandon. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. I will try to keep this as short as possible, but there is some ground to cover for this proposal. The subject land is composed of 3 lots with civic addresses 481 and 487 Norfolk Street South and number 7 Decoux Road in Simcoe. They are currently in residential use and in an area predominantly residential in nature to the eastern side of Norfolk Street South with a shopping center to the west side. Regarding planning policy, the lands subject to this application are designated urban residential in the OP and zoned urban residential type 1 or R1B, as is much of the surrounding housing. The proposal today is to make a site-specific special provision in the official plan to allow for an increased residential density and increased commercial usage within the urban residential designation. The zoning for the subject lands would also be changed from urban residential type 1 to residential commercial business zone or CRB with a special provision. This was presented for comment at the July 3rd Public Hearing Committee meeting along with the draft bylaws. Since the public hearing meeting, staff have received and reviewed a retail impact assessment from the developers. The scope of this study included the downtown central business district, the Queensway in both to the east and west, and Whitehorse Plaza to the west of the subject lands, and looked at the impact the proposed additional commercial space would have on the town. It is considered reasonable to go through the conclusions of this report, and they are as follows. The proposal includes approximately 17,000 square feet of retail commercial space to be delivered in a mixed-use concept. The site is well located for a retail commercial component. It is located at a signalized intersection. Population growth is forecast at the site, in developments near the site, and in the community of Simcoe overall. This population growth supports additional retail commercial space in the market. The 17,000 square feet of retail commercial space proposed at the site represents less than 1% of the estimated total commercial space in the community of Simcoe. The established Whitehorse Plaza is not forecast to experience any impact on its planned function as a result of the development proposed at the site. The existing retail commercial facilities in the Queensway area are not forecast to be significantly impacted by the proposal due to the differentiated nature of their offerings, distance, and the limited amount of retail commercial space proposed at the site. And downtown Simcoe includes approximately 789,000 square feet of retail commercial space, The site is considered sufficiently differentiated in terms of scale, anticipated tenant mix, and distance to reduce potential impacts of the development proposal on the downtown area. The study concluded with this retail market impact has demonstrated that there is sufficient market support for the proposed additional retail space and that the entry of the new space will not cause store closures sufficient to prejudice the planned function of the downtown area, lands designated shopping center commercial or lands designated commercial. In terms of the zoning bylaw, at the request of the applicants, this was amended since the public hearing meeting. The two changes requested was the reduction of the front yard setback, which in the previous draft bylaw at public hearing was 4.5 meters, and they would like it to be 3 meters, and increase in the permitted height. The zoning provision allows for 11 meters, and they would like 12. The increased height allows for some flexibility in terms of the final lot grading, as the frontage where a building's height would be measured is currently much higher than the remainder of the subject lands. This would be addressed at site plan stage in more detail. As noted at the time of the July public meeting, some further information was expected in the form of the previously noted retail impact assessment. However, one of the overriding themes raised during the public hearing, both from members of the public from both members and members of the public, was the issue about travel levels, traffic levels, and the safety or lack thereof of the current Norfolk Street South to Kew Road intersection in terms of the local intensification. Given this, the Director of Development Engineering summarized the following information from the Ontario Provincial Police. The average number of accidents at this intersection per year is 6. This was contrasted with other intersections such as Norfolk Street and the Queensway, which has an annual rate of 13. Beyond these statistics, a traffic impact study has also been submitted which concluded the development would not put undue pressure on the existing roads network. Regardless, the traffic impacts study will need to be revisited during the site plan stage, given the driveway will need to be relocated as far to the east of the site as zoning provisions would allow to ease pressure at the intersection, which admittedly has somewhat limited visibility. The proposed bylaws for the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment were attached to the report. As such, planning staff are recommending approval for council's consideration today. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions from council? Councillor Breton, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll start, but I do have other concerns, but just a couple of things that I caught from the planner's report. One is what they recommend for height of the building on the property, and the setback are, in my opinion, not adequate. Thank you. I have other concerns, but I'll wait.
Sure. Do you have any questions for staff? Councillor Michelli, then Duthie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff. Andrew, you mentioned that the traffic impact study revealed that there are, on average, 6 accidents at that intersection per year. And then you cited that there are 2 other intersections in Simcoe for comparison that have an average of 13. And I'm certainly not an expert on traffic patterns or traffic impact studies, but those other intersections, they have commercial space on all 4 corners, and this currently does not. So would it be logical to conclude then that if this application were approved, that signaled intersection could even exceed the number of accidents at those other locations, or at least equal them?
Through the chair to Councillor Michelli, I'm not really in a position to say it would all be just sort of guesswork and supposition at this point. Yes, I think as you attract more people to a location that perhaps they're not as familiar driving every day of their life, that can be an issue. But I also know that this particular corner has been a problem since I was a child. It's the hill coming up to Kew. So regardless of what you do, short of possibly having a look at creating, say, advanced greens for the left turn lane from Decoux and create a left turn lane out of the Whitehorse Plaza that gets an advanced green, might help slightly in terms of the left turners, but as soon as everyone has their sort of the usual go ahead, I'm not sure that even that makes that much of a difference. You're still not going to be able to see over the crest of the hill. I think it's a challenge, but I don't think I could actually stand here and say, oh yes, with this development, it will worsen. I think...
Mohammed, did you?
Oh, sorry.
Through Madam Mayor, I would probably add few things here. Through the site plan application process that will happen after this, if it is approved, there will be requirement for road widening, and we'll review that. There will be a requirement for road upgrades as well as inclusion of sidewalks. So those elements will improve the situation, and also we'll further review the traffic impact study to understand if we need further intervention to reduce any potential risk.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, maybe if I can just pick up quickly something that Mohammed just said. So did I hear correctly that you're saying that through the traffic impact study, there will be a requirement for road widening, or you're speculating, or it may be?
Through Madam Mayor, so we received some comments from our engineering department colleagues. And as far as their comments, as I see that they are seeking for conveyance of road widening along Decoux Road and Norfolk Street South. So that would be a county requirement. So that will be further reviewed during the site plan stage.
So if I may ask, it's probably for our EIS folks, but what's the cost to that, and who will bear it?
Through Madam Mayor, generally for development, as a part of the development, generally that goes to the developer to implement these additional works.
Okay. I have some other comments on that, but I'll come back to that in just a minute. If I may ask, 17,000 square feet is the retail commercial space. Do we know how many units that is planned to be, or is there any configuration at this point as to what that can look like?
Through the chair to Councillor Duthie. We've had 8 units discussed as part of their original proposal. But again, until we've gone into site plan, and we start to understand what uses might be going into which spaces, it could be potentially up to 10 if the space allows for it, or a smaller number of larger units. It's not fixed yet. And I think trying to fix it before they start looking at finding tenancies would be premature. So,
A fair point. As I understand that there's some very specific uses that would be permitted in that area. One of the questions I get, and to me is actually a bit of a challenge, is related to the parking and those uses, because to me they seem discongruent in that some of them will require a heavy amount of staff vehicles, or one of them is a place of worship, so on a Sunday it might be packed, meaning there's other people that may be displaced. So I guess, how do we account for that within those uses and ensuring that there's parking for 42 residential units?
Through the chair, I think the parking is what's going to self-limit the development. So, for instance, if a branch of the LCBO or some other shop which sells liquor or alcohol, it's a minimum of 12 parking spaces for that one unit. No matter how small it is, no matter how big it is, minimum 12. So it could be, because of the limited size in terms of parking provision for this site. Yes, currently they're over what they need, but that's not taking into account some of these other potential commercial uses that do have higher. But it's also why we took out things like education facilities, because those have to have a parking space for every student registered. There's no way that can be accommodated here. So we took out a number of things in terms of what is usually permitted in the residential commercial business zone. So I really think ultimately it is going to be that the parking provision is going to be what limits what businesses can go there. And it's likely going to be more towards the personal services, things like this, that people are coming one or two at a time, as opposed to, you know, a huge chain restaurant where you're having hundreds. I don't think the parking is going to work for that, so.
Thank you. If I may, Madam Mayor, one of the concerns that was raised previously related to the height difference and sort of the impact that would have related to the properties that are below in the subdivision that are below. So if I'm looking at figure 6, if you can just maybe help me to understand, what would be the distance at the far east corner, I guess northeast corner of the parking lot, to the end of the property line where it will presumably drop down to the properties below?
Through the chair, sorry, can I just clarify, do you mean basically the green band? So
Right. So I'm trying to
the
understand.
edge of the parking?
Yeah, because to me, if I recall from that subdivision, like it's a fairly significant slope that's over there, and to me, I think it gets worse as you go further north. So it's conceivable in my mind, and I'm hoping that maybe you can tell me otherwise, that from that parking lot you will be looking down into the properties below. But I'm trying to understand if that's correct or not.
I think until more of the grading has been sorted out at site plan stage, I'm not entirely sure I'd be able to give anything close to an accurate response for that. Yes, the land is elevated at this stage. It may be that it gets reduced slightly further through lot grading. Once they start evening out the entire thing, it may be it fractionally would come up. And if it proves to be an issue, then we also still have the options to look into some sort of screening, whether it's fencing or planting, things like that, in order to try and mitigate, say, the headlights of cars coming in and out, things like this, so that they're not going into people's second floor bedroom windows or whatever may happen. I don't think it's that much of a difference, but certainly things like that will be looked at site plan stage. Right now, you always have to just kind of take these external images, renderings, and the site plan just as indicative. They're not set in stone. They're just an indication of what they're hoping to achieve.
Sorry, if I can just interrupt for a minute. So we have 2 deputations scheduled today. Do we have an applicant or an agent that can speak to any of these questions? They probably just spoke at the public hearing meeting. Okay. Go ahead.
I have just one more question. Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Andrew, for your comments. It's mentioned in the report, and I seem to think that I brought it up at the public hearing committee, but where the driveway that is planned to be entering into the new site is on the slope of a hill, and I know it was sort of addressed in the report, but I'm wondering if there's any additional comments that could be shared, or perhaps someone from EIS wants to note that. Again, it seems really difficult to me. If you just look at it simply based on what's in figure 6, you know, where that is right now is where the left turn, effectively at the beginning of the left turn lane on Decoux is. To me, that seems problematic, but I would appreciate some additional comment.
Through the mayor, I would just briefly say that the driveway as shown, again, is just indicative, and we're hoping to move it as far to the east as possible at site plan stage. I know that that's not, you know, a great improvement, but it is still moving it further to the east. So trying to improve it as much as a relatively modest sized site would allow. And that would be part of the new sort of traffic study reviews and things like that. I don't know if if DevEng have anything else that they'd wish to say.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor to Councillor Duthie. By also moving that entrance further to the east, they would be able to provide some additional storage for any potential turn lanes that would be required, and that would come out through the TIS as well.
Thanks very much.
Jacob, just while we've got you here, do you have any comments on lot grading? No? Okay, thanks. Any other questions from council? Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Okay, in your comments, you mentioned there's 1% increase in the commercial space compared to the downtown. How does that compare to the vacancies in the downtown?
Through the chair, I just summarized their conclusions from the retail impact assessment. It was included, I believe, as attachment F to the report, and I believe they discussed that specific issue in terms of vacancy versus occupied. But I don't have that right at my fingertips, I'm afraid.
Okay. I too will echo what Councillor Duthie mentioned. There is no geodetic data on there to tell us, but the concern I have is you mentioned that the building is 1 meter higher than what is in the current zoning bylaw, and the setback is closer than what is in the current zoning bylaw. Why is that?
Through the chair, we have reduced so I'll go through a couple of things. So we've reduced the outside side yard setbacks, the exterior one, so the one facing Taku, fractionally, because we wanted to increase the setback from the interior side yard, because this building is going to be south of a dwelling further up Norfolk Street South. So we wanted to increase that, so it's kind of shifting the whole thing down by about 1.5 meters in both directions. So they've lost land in terms of the interior yard setback at the north of the site, but they've gained at the south of the site. So it's a little closer, 1.5 meters closer to Taku Road than the provision would allow. In terms of the front setback, it had been in the original draft 4.5 meters. Standard would be 6 in the zoning provisions. I think what they're trying to achieve here is a good interface with Norfolk Street, which given the topography of this site could be a bit of a challenge, but also B, just trying to make as much of the site usable as possible. So again, we, as planning staff, we didn't feel that would result in a major concern, given that there's still also the 6 meter road allowance along here. So we didn't feel that further reduction would be a huge issue. In terms of the height, I think the height is, 11 meters is what is in the zone provision. They've requested 12. The intention is to be a 3-story building. Now, once you have, say, a 3 and a bit meter ground floor, nearly 3 meter 2 and 3, 2 meters to a pitch of a roof on a building that size isn't easily accomplished. So they're looking for that extra meter just as a bit of a safety net. Now, that said, if they went with a flat roof, they could fit 4 stories in. So something that could be considered that I didn't put into the bylaw but could be is that you not only give them the 12 meter height, but you restrict it to 3-story building. So it can be a 3-story building to a maximum height of 12 meters. And that way we don't have this potential issue of suddenly having a 4th floor. Now again, I think the parking restrictions on this site, given it's quite small, would negate the ability to have another 20 residential units. That would be 40 more parking spaces They currently have about 10 over what they absolutely base need now. So there's no way that they could functionally have a fourth floor. But that said, if you wanted to do belts and braces, then I would suggest you say 3 stories and maximum of 12 meters. That gives them a bit of flexibility in terms of grading, depending on how that's going to work, plus a bit of flexibility in terms of the height of the commercial units and the ability to, fit in a peaked roof, which is, or a pitched roof on top. So that's mainly what it's there for, is just a bit more flexibility.
Does the zoning bylaw still have daylighting on the corners? The reason I ask that, it looks like to me it's pushed out on the corner, like it's tight to the corner, but I realize the traffic study and the turning lanes and all that may change the road width, but I'm just wondering, like, I always thought the zoning bylaw had requirements for sight triangles on the corners.
Through Madam Mayor, the side triangle still needs to be there, so we'll confirm that the side triangle will not be obstructed. So, we don't have the detailed design yet, so we don't know exact position, but when the side plan will come, they have to avoid the side triangle 9 meter by 9 meter.
So that may change the setback of the building.
It will change. It will not change the setback that is required. That means they still have to maintain the setback from the property line.
You're confusing me. I'm asking if the way the building is situated on the property, if you have a sight triangle on the corner, then the building, if they keep the layout of the existing building, it would have to be set back.
Through Madam Chair, yes, they have to change. If it is the case, then they have to change their layout. The side triangle cannot be used for the structure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's take a little breather there. We have 2 deputations registered so we can hear from the community. I'm just checking to see if I have names. Give me a moment. Our first deputation is from Glenn. Glenn, come on up. You've got 5 minutes. Hit the button on the right-hand side of the podium there, and I can let you know when you have 1 minute remaining. You start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship, and distinguished members of council. I have only 5 minutes, so I'm going to speak just facts and not with emotion. This existing development just to the east and south is approximately 25.89 acres of developed land as far as residential. There's 123 homes, and approximately 423 people live in this very close proximity to this proposed development. The new development would approximately give about 42 proposed units, so about 84 people to 90 people, giving a population density of 67.74%. And the total increase in that small area would be almost 20%. Currently, just to the west, where the Sobeys Plaza is, exists a residential area. And do you know how many backyards back onto that commercial development? 0. This proposed development, there are 13 backyards of people that live in this residential area that would look at nothing but concrete and development. Okay, so that's something to consider. Currently in the proposed site, I believe the property contains Kentucky coffee trees and black ash trees. I was referred to the Ministry of Natural the MNR, who referred me to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks to investigate. As of January 2nd, 2024, the province of Ontario said that they would step up any investigations of any land use as far as indigenous species that are considered endangered. This proposal right here would wipe out all of those trees. The proposed area as well will increase noise level to all the residents that are there due to lack of trees that will be destroyed due to this development. Noise levels will increase, lack of privacy will increase for Brant and Turner Avenue. These people are going to be greatly affected that have lived in that community for years. So it's not just about money, it's not just about a proposed development. These people actually live here, right? One thing that I didn't see in the county engineer's report, and maybe somebody can shed light on that, was the existing terrain, the variation, right? There's no mention. I roughly guesstimated at around 3 meters, so about 12 feet, that this is going to back on. The gentleman that spoke previous to me, he was talking about how that they can increase to the east the abutment for the entrance for the proposed development. That's going to further back on to these 13 people's residential areas. I just ask council to please consider before voting on this, that if this was your property, that you lived in there for many years, right? What would you want? Would you want to have constant noise, traffic?
1 minute remaining.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Your Honor. Your Honor, Your Worship, same. I ask and I plead for you. This is based on facts of all these people. I've lived in the area for 1 year. I came from Hamilton to escape nothing but traffic and headaches and congestion. And I look and in the backyard, there's across the street from me is a conservation area, right? Now behind me is going to be a proposed development that, honest to God, when I look at the town of Simcoe, I see nothing but businesses that are closed up. You have right beside the Royal Canadian Superstore a massive piece of property that's been sitting vacant for 10 years, and it hasn't been developed. Why all of a sudden does this have to be developed? I pose that question to you. I look upon all of you, and I plead with you to vote as if you were living in that area, that you would be affected by noise and traffic levels. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for coming, Glenn. Are there any questions for the deputation? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then we have Robert. Robert Oakley. Maybe he's virtual. Councillor Van Passen?
You want a motion to receive the deputation
I was
as
going to
information?
do them both at the same time, so just
Right.
hold on. Robert Oakley, can we just switch over Casey to the screen so we can make sure he's not online and muted? Okay, all right, we called for him. Doesn't look like he's here. So with that, Councillor Van Passen's moving a motion to receive the deputation as information. Is there a seconder? Councillor Duthie seconds that. All in favor? That's carried. Are there any other comments or questions to our staff? I guess questions? Okay, can we get the staff recommendation put on the screen before us? Unless somebody wishes to propose an alternative, we're looking for some direction on this file. I'm not going to read it unless we get a mover and a seconder. But the staff recommendation is to approve the planning file. Councillor Van Passen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I listened to the staff report, the deputations, read all the background, all the... it seems like most of the concerns will be dealt with through the site plan process, which is probably more important. What's important here is the concept behind it. We're limiting the uses. Staff has explained that parking will probably limit the uses more. I don't have the problem with the height, granting the extra meter to allow them to put a sloped roof on it. Maybe I'm just weird, but I think a sloped roof looks a lot nicer than a big flat square box. And But I would like to ask staff the wording of the condition that we would grant that extra meter on the condition that it's still only going to be 3 stories and not give them the option of playing games with us. So could I get some word on staff on the wording that we'd need to add to their motion to specify that?
Excuse me, through the mayor. I believe it was clause G in the bylaw. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it here.
While you do that, Andrew, take a minute to review that. One thing I wanted to say as a follow-up, Councillor Breton, I found it in the report, the retail information. So 1,850,000 square feet of retail space in Simcoe. This proposal is 17,000, which is less than 1%. And it states, I think it's page 12 here, or it was page 11. There's a 13.8% vacancy rate in Simcoe. 13.8. Downtown Simcoe. Page 11 and 12 of that, of attachment F.
If I have this right, that change will come in the bylaw, not in the staff recommendation. So I will move the staff recommendation this way, and then when the bylaw comes up, we'll make sure that change is added then.
Okay, sounds good. So Andrew can work on that. All right, there's a motion before you, moved by Councillor Van Passen. Is there a seconder? Councillor Berry. Any debate or discussion? Councillor Columbus.
Madam Mayor, I will not be supporting the motion. I think this is overdevelopment. It's a higher density. It's not as compatible as we perhaps should be within that neighborhood. I have no concern about the height. I just don't, we've got some traffic issues there. And we mentioned 13.8% vacancy in the downtown. Anything over 5% is significant, so I can't support the application. Thank you.
Councillor Duthie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, similar to Councillor Columbus, I will not be supporting this motion that is before us. I think, we've heard quite significantly from the community in the area, and I put a lot of stock and value into the comments that they're making in regards to their property. I also think that there is legitimate concern for the traffic impact and pedestrian impact in that area that, while I appreciate may be addressed through the traffic impact study at site plan approval, at that point it's beyond our control in terms of this council's opinion. And I think that that's a risk that I'm not willing to take at this point for the betterment of our community down the road. I think as well as we start to look at that whole strip of road, there is nothing commercial in that section until you get to Victoria Street. So all of that is residential all the way along on the east side of Norfolk Street South. And I think putting that building right there on the corner is the wrong approach for this community. So based on that and a myriad of concerns, I won't support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Through you, I just wanted to say that I appreciate the effort, but unfortunately, I will not be able to support this staff recommendation. I feel that area is under immense traffic in terms of pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic, and I am very, very concerned about the parking, the issues. I don't think that there's enough parking, and what we've done is we need to focus on that issue in particular, because this is one that always comes back to bite us. And I just don't see the cohesiveness of this fitting into that section of the community. So I will not be supporting this recommendation.
Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to echo some of the comments of my colleagues. I am always amazed. I do travel that route and make a right turn at that intersection on many mornings of my working career the last few years, and I am always astounded at the number of school-aged children crossing at that intersection at 8:30, 8:45 in the morning, and huge volumes of traffic at that same time. And there is an elementary school with less than 200 meters from that location, and there is a high school not much further distance away to the north. So for just general safety reasons, I'm afraid that that place, as I think was mentioned in a presentation deputation at the public hearings meeting, there's just a lot going on there, and I just think it's too frenetic with all the activity there for safety reasons. Thank you.
Councillor Brunton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't get into all the details, but I do not believe we need more commercial space than what we have in that area now. I am concerned about the height, as we discussed. So I too will not be supporting the application. Thank you.
Councillor Vandendriessche.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the concept, I like the building, I like the visuals that I see. Is it in the right spot? Maybe not. Unfortunately, we need development, but at the end of the day, maybe this is not the proper location for it. But I'm not adverse to the plan, and I'm not adverse to the design.
Okay, I will jump in. I actually disagree with a lot of the comments, but I will end up siding with you on them. I really like the visual. I really like the concept. I think it's quite nice. I know that we actually do need more commercial, as stated in the retail report, based on our growth numbers, but also to offset the increasingly heavy, crippling burden that's placed on our residents. We should be bringing more commercial and industrial and other types of tax base here to Norfolk County. But for me, I struggle, and it's not just specific to this file, I struggle with being expected to pass a development file when there are so many unknowns left for us. The number of units being a big one. And for me, I think the biggest in this situation is the height and the grading, which is such a shame to say no to something that could provide a lot of benefit and maybe not even be a factor in a lot of people's backyards if we just knew the grading. But given that we don't know, it's not something that I want to take a gamble on these residents, their backyards and their privacy and their space. So I won't be supporting the application. But I would like to say, it's a shame because we do need to be diversifying our tax base. We do need more commercial space across the county, and we certainly need more housing. With that, I'm going to call the question. Too late. I called for comments. Sorry, Dave, I can see your hands on the line there. I called for some public comments and we've got a motion on the floor, so.
Oh, okay, I was going to just say we're happy for deferral to answer some of these questions without a vote. I'm sorry I missed the call before. I thought it was here.
You have answers for another date on items of number of units, grading, parking spaces, height. You do?
I think we can. I think we can get them for it. Yes.
Okay, then I turn it over to...
I'd prefer an opportunity to do that than where we're at this evening, to be honest.
Yep, I understand. Okay, I'll turn it back over to council. Hearing that, does that change anything for any members of council? Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I respectfully ask to withdraw my motion?
And?
Well, we'll see if you allow that.
Yep, I allow it. Well, who is our seconder? Councillor Barry. You're okay with that? Okay.
And if I could put a new motion on the floor to defer this application for more information.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Well, it'll be outside information, so we're not referring it back to staff. So, how long?
Through the mayor, I guess that's our one challenge, is that we're here at special council because of the legislative timelines. So any deferral would put us past that, although we don't have the refund provisions anymore. So
Could
I guess
amend
maybe
that motion
maybe a
to
time to
defer
come
at
back.
applicant's request, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Dave, you're nodding your head. So what Councillor Van Passen means by that and what I mean might be two very different things. So I'd be looking for a verbal commitment from you here on the record that you're not going to appeal us for a non-decision based on that timeline if you wanted my support on the deferral.
I think if we defer to the next council meeting, which will give us some time to get some information back to you, I'm going to maybe take a bit of a flyer here, but I would suggest that it's not in our interest to move forward with a appeal, and that we wouldn't appeal on lack of decision based on no decision tonight. If we could just move this forward, council meeting,
By 1
I guess it would be next month.
Or September,
Which would
I guess.
give us
We've
some
got
time.
end of September 17th is our
Oh,
next
okay.
council meeting.
Okay, September 17th, which would give us some time to prepare some of the materials in response. I think it was the 4 or 5 items that had come up from council. And then we could work with staff just to make sure the bylaw is appropriate, if any changes that need to be made as well.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor for deferral at the applicant's request to come back before council September 17th. Did I get a seconder for that? I don't. Councillor Vandendriessche? Okay, no debate or discussion on that, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the deferral? And opposed? The motion carries. It's deferred until the 17th of September, and we'll leave it with the applicant to return information on some of those questions we heard. Councillor Huffman?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I would like to ask Dave, I'm really unsure, why was he not involved earlier in the meeting? Why is he just coming on now?
Yep, Dave, that.
Through the
I think-
mayor, is that a question to me directly?
Yes, directly.
Oh, sorry, I thought we weren't registered as a delegation. We were just registered to answer questions. So I might have misunderstood that's how we registered, based on the staff report and the recommendation. We were in full support of that. So we just registered to respond to questions. So that might have been my misunderstanding of how we registered, and I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification.
I can confirm that I saw Dave's name join earlier, so I know he's been on the call. I just didn't. Okay. Councillor Duthie.
Madam Mayor, may I just ask a question of clarification, perhaps to yourself or to the clerk or deputy clerk? That motion was to defer it, but my understanding from the comments was that additional information is going to come back. So what is the process for that? Because I think a deferral is just a delay of a vote, doesn't provide opportunity for additional comments.
I suggested deferral because we weren't referring it back to our staff to bring us information. We're just deferring the vote because the applicant or agent is going to bring information. So that was my interpretation of that. We're not waiting on our staff to bring information. They will respond to those questions and it'll come back on the agenda just as it is today, plus an addendum or an email or something that we will circulate for the public.
So that's my question then. So the additional comments that we receive from the applicant will be made public?
Great, yes, absolutely, and great point made by our deputy clerk. She said, or the applicant can come and give us a deputation at council, if you prefer, he's shaking his head, so.
Thank you. That to me makes sense, and to be fair, I think a written version at the same time would be appropriate, but.
Yep, something in writing and then in person if possible, Dave, that would help us out. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All right, so we have, correct, a couple bylaws that are going to be deferred now. So let's go for, the first one is item 4.1, bylaw 2024-82. It's a zoning amendment for 42 Mechanic Street West, Simcoe. Mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All in favor? That's carried. And then we have 487 Norfolk Street, so that's bylaw 2024-85, 2024-86, deferred until September 17th. We need a motion to defer the bylaws as well. Okay, it's attached to the staff report, so we're not going to move that. I am looking for,
Just wanted to say, Madam Mayor, I think Mechanic Street is still in Waterford, not in Simcoe.
yes, it is.
No, I think he said when.
Waterford.
the mayor
Thank
was
you.
saying September
4.1.
17th, so we went
Okay, confirming bylaw. I'm looking for a motion to approve bylaw 2024-87 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, the special council meeting held the September 4th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Huffman, seconded by Councillor Michelli. All in favor? Carried. And Councillor Huffman is moving adjournment for 5:24 PM, seconded by Councillor Duthie. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. We're back next week, and we have a 9 a.m. start next Tuesday.
But I think they should ask for 1 month at least. It's not enough time to do the grading and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.